Hey guys, today I'll be showing you how to do a weight shift with your character build. This covers some basic concepts like timing, spacing, and arcs, and it also covers a couple neat tricks that will just make things a little bit easier to make it look nice and smooth. Maybe even if you've got some, like you're used to animating, it might just show you a couple different ways of doing things, because I know everyone does stuff slightly differently. So just open up your file. I just named it character weight shift for the original file, and then I'll make sure I also put up a finished file if you want to look through the animation and see anything about like how I did it or anything. Okay, so let's just go into here. And we're gonna go and just make a set of keyframes for everyone in the stage. And I apologize, I'm getting over some kind of cold, so I might not sound very great. Okay, so here's a set of keyframes, so that's where we're gonna start. And then put a set of keyframes where you want to end. And then we can make the start pose a little bit more different if you want. Like, we can just like make a pose out of this. You don't have to keep the default build one. So we can like lean her forward and change where she's balanced a little. Maybe have her standing with her legs apart a bit. Let's play around with it a little bit and see what you like. And so if you're doing animation for like, if you work in animation or you're planning to work in animation, you might see me do stuff with my file at home that I wouldn't do at work. If you notice that I'm just doing this with this if you just do it a little bit, it's not very noticeable. But if you do it too much, you see like the line weight change. So a lot of the time you're not supposed to do that, and you're definitely never supposed to stretch the head or anything like that. Because I guess the going theory is that it's like your head is like you got a skull in there and it shouldn't stretch. Most shows won't let you stretch the head at all, even if they let you get away with it a little bit on the body. Just thought I'd point that out as I'm going. I don't want to teach anyone bad habits. Even if they say don't skew things, usually you can just get away with it a little bit, as long as like it's not noticeable and nobody can tell that you did it. Okay, so once that's all adjusted, I'm going to use that as the start pose. So what I did was I had changed this first pose, and then I realized I didn't have the key press program on, so I went back to fix that. So we have this first pose here. What we're going to do is just copy these keyframes here, and then just hold down Alt and drag it over, and then just make sure this is set back to frame 1, so whenever you go and sync the timeline and the head, everything matches up later, in case, say, you want to put lip sync in or something like that. So you could just have her lean backwards and put her feet together. That would work. I mean, we can always make another couple of differences, like maybe her hands are out more. I haven't really drawn great hands on this character yet, so we just got the default ones, which kind of look a little stiff. Okay. And maybe bring them in a little bit here. And once again, if we changed the first pose, you just gotta change this one here since they're supposed to be identical. I probably should have just put that set of keyframes in at the last minute when it was done. Okay, so she's just gonna do this. And a few things to consider while we're animating is even if they're just doing a simple action, or maybe it would be like something like here. Let me just throw a couple sets of keyframes in over here and I'll show you another example. Like a bigger action. Like if she's doing a whole step or something. I'm not going to make this one perfect since I'm just using it as a quick example. If there's weird looking things, normally I would fix all this in the process, but for the sake of being quick. And then like, say she just went back a bit further. So you just think about like how you're getting from pose A to pose B. And maybe see if you can put an arc in there. So she's starting here and going to here. Will there be like a little bit of an arc, or say she goes back quite a bit further. Just trying to find the onion skin. There we go. So maybe she'll even take a step into that position, though this looks pretty silly since we don't have like more stuff set up. But if she's going pretty far, which is my main point, regardless of whether or not the poses really make sense, you might want to see if you can put a little bit of an arc in there so she goes up in the middle. Or the opposite you can do, which is make them go down in the middle. And make her just go from here, and then in the middle she'd go like down some and then go into the final pose. If it's like, if they're hardly moving at all, it might not make any difference, but if they're moving enough to really be noticeable, you probably want to put some kind of arc in, and I'm going to show you a really easy way to do that. Also, as a refresher, timing is how many seconds it's taking to get from pose A to B, or like maybe how many frames. And spacing is how close together each drawing is. So like the space in between this head and that head. Just for a refresher so I don't confuse anybody. So usually if I'm just doing something simple like a weight shift, I'll just put like a tween in. So I added a classic tween to all of those keyframes. So now she moves like this. There's no timing on this, so there's nothing going on the graph editor or on the little panel that I use over here sometimes. Then we're going to take the middle and make one set of keyframes down the middle, like this. So now she goes from this key to this one to this one. And then let's see about making her either taller in the middle, or you can make her shorter and like give her a dip. This is usually like the fastest shortcut to just making it a little bit, like just a quick and easy way to do it. So that looks kind of clunky still. And I can't really come up with, like, credit myself with this idea. One of my supervisors showed me how to do this ages ago, which was a very handy trick. So on this side, we're gonna make this tween set to, just 1 second. Oh, I'm looking for a thing, but it's actually in the properties panel. Oops. So we select all those and go over the property panel and go classic ease in. And I think cubic is the one I want. I'll let you know if it's a little bit too much. I'm just trying to find the ones that are kind of equivalent to the Tweens panel I normally use. But I also want this to be something you don't have to buy plugins to do. Oops. Clicking all the things. Okay, so classic ease, and this one's out. And cubic. So if you see now, she goes, like the drawing should be spaced, so at the beginning, This might be harder to see right now, but you see the drawings go from being spaced really close together, and then they're gonna get a lot closer together at the end, which is what we want. So this one's in, that one's in. And this one's out. Which most of the timing for, or meant like a lot of the spacing just comes down to formulas. And this is kind of what I always do my weight shifts at. But if you're doing something like going from pose A to pose B and you want it like really fast and snappy, then I'd probably just like mostly focus on the out. But it depends on what you're doing. And I'll just keep talking about it as it comes up in tutorials. Okay, so I just keyframed out these three here. So we originally had this middle set, and then I just selected all this, and I hit F6. And then we're gonna go to that middle one. Sorry about my voice. Still pretty stuffed up. And we're gonna go to, just gonna change the timing on this one so it's even, which means that it doesn't have any custom. Let's go to no ease. So now she is moving a little bit quickly. Just gonna hit F5 a few times to add some more in-betweens as well, so it's not looking so fast. And then you can see that she doesn't really come up as extremely, which was part of the point of taking out that middle keyframe, because you don't want it to be like clink clunk, you know, when she goes up. You want it to be a nice smooth arc. But we might just edit that by hand slightly too. Sometimes you need to, sometimes you don't. It's just almost not noticeable at all. So maybe a little too subtle. It's looking alright, though I think there's a slight weird twitch or something going on in here. And the other thing you can do to make it look a little bit more natural could be to like maybe raise her foot as she's stepping. And if you notice that, sometimes I'm just holding down Alt and moving this end around instead of changing where this point is. If you notice here, her legs are gonna start acting really weird. That's because I moved this point around from where it originally was, which is where this little crosshair is. If you need to put those back, just double click on them and it will go back to where they were. Make sure you always do that right after you move them. Like, you move them around, you make your adjustment, then click on it, because you don't want to go through 100 frames of animation doing that on every keyframe, because it will get very frustrating if you do that. Alright, and the other reason why it's still glitching is, you can see here, it's like this. That one doesn't matter because there's no keyframe on it, like no tween on it, but this one's different than this one. So you need to make sure they're all the same for anything that has tweens on it. So not the most beautiful animation ever, but we can also fix it later if we need to. I mean, it's still moving pretty smoothly. I think I'm just a little picky as well, and honestly, the closer it is to like the more subtle a movement you're doing, the more likely you'll find that something looks wrong, and that it will be harder to change. I was gonna move her arm somewhere, and then I just realized I don't really want to have to adjust that 10 more times. Okay. Let's go and put this on 2s. I'm just gonna check 2 to see if they're all on odd frame numbers. Some shows seem to care a lot whether or not all your keyframes are always on odd numbers, in that you put on 2s on odds. Some shows do not seem to care at all, though those seem to be rare. I think there might be a reason for that. Maybe it has something to do with post-production. I'm not sure. But generally just... Okay, I wasn't expecting it to do that, honestly. I might just open up my panel. It keyframed everything that I didn't want it to keyframe. So I have the Tweens panel in my extensions, and also the timing chart panel, which I don't have on here right now. If you have that one, you also can put on 2s through it, or you can just go to like remove classic tween and take out every second one of these by hand, which I'm sure would be a lot more annoying. So just by like selecting the whole row and going to Shift F6, I'm gonna take my shortcut here and just use this panel. Shortcut might be debatable if it, depending on how long it takes. Okay. So synchronize symbols. And then I'm just gonna fix the pop that's going on in her knee right now. I don't know if you guys can notice this, but like when she steps, there seems to be like, it suddenly pops out a lot. Oops, I'm using my other hand that you can't see on the screen. So it pops out like this really far, and then it pops back into this position really suddenly, and it just doesn't look very smooth. So I'm taking a look at where it is on the frame before and after. And maybe I'll just see if I can retween it and make it work without having to do too much to it, or like, you know, do anything too frustrating. Then the other thing I'm considering is like, where do I want it in this, like, weight shift, like what frame do I want this particular movement to happen on? Maybe I put it too early. And whenever the foot comes down, you don't want it to come down slowly and like ease slowly into the position. You want it to like go slow to fast, so she has it in the air and it's kind of hanging in the air, and then it snaps down into position on the floor. So you might have like one frame where it contacts the ground. Just like it. Let's move this back a little, and then have like her heel land first, and then the rest comes down. I can put this up slightly, and then it should be right on the ground. And all I did was put a, you know, you can put your tween on here, like with create classic tween. There's no timing on this one. I just absent-mindedly used the panel. So sometimes you run into stuff where you're like, this is frustrating, it's not moving as smoothly as I'd like. Just keep tweaking it and thinking about like, why is it not working right, and problem solving, and you'll probably get it pretty quickly. or at least eventually. Just try not to get too frustrated, because I know it doesn't always go the way you want it. This isn't so bad, but I mean, sometimes you're animating something and you're just like, oh man, this is frustrating. I think what's going on here is be the way that's rotating. It's like just looking at a place. You may not need to go it so far to the side. One trick for seeing how things are matching up is just to like copy a chunk of the character depending on what you're looking at, and then make a new layer above some of those. Just paste the copy here, put it the outline, and then match up part of it, and then just take a look at, you know, where that one piece you're wondering about should be attached to make sure it's not like floating off from where it should be. And now what I'm looking at here is, you almost get the illusion that like the foot and all this is moving. Oh, sorry, I'm using my hand again on the screen. So it looks like everything's moving except for this leg. You even see like this tiny twitch here. I'm gonna get rid of that. I think I might just get rid of the keyframe right here, as long as it's not important. Doesn't seem to be. Oops. Okay. I need to calibrate my pen. Okay, so let's take that out. And I'm just gonna get in the habit of syncing. Oops. It selected something it wasn't supposed to. Right click, synchronize keyframes, since you just moved it from 25 to 23. Okay, so part of what's looking weird now is that the snaps, like her leg snaps right into the other leg, and there's no like space in between on this frame. So we're just gonna take a look at where the other keyframes are around this one, and just adjust this. So it should be somewhere in the middle-ish kind of area. If not right in the middle, that might be favoring the green side, which would be the previous frame. And this other thing I'm fixing is I seen that her foot was shifting back and forth. So I took the end position foot and put it on this keyframe at the first, and then adjusted it. It probably doesn't need anything too fancy. We could go about doing this the same way that we did it before. This is exactly what I showed you before, but only I'm using the shortcut of using this tool panel. You can find all these settings in the properties panel. It's possible for you to get this, but you have to buy it. So, I mean, if you're just doing this for fun, I'd just do it the long way. Or see if you can find a free version of something like it. Gonna fix this leg. moving a little bit better. Just gonna adjust it where it doesn't match up with the feet. It's a little bit better now. And you can see that that foot where the step is still doesn't look right. I think I figured out another problem in it. So if she's stepping, this is also a good way to check if your arcs work. Because like there's the arc in the body when she moves up. The other arc is to check. Oh, I'm using the wrong button here. Okay, so she's moving. And we're just gonna draw on a blank layer and see where her foot goes on all these keyframes. And see how it goes like this. We don't want that. We're gonna want it to go kind of like in a nice rounded shape. So I'm just gonna start with the feet. It's a little smoother. I just kind of adjusted the feet until they were more in a better shape. I mean, you can also just, once you figure out whether or not it's working, the other thing you can do is find out where the main poses are and kind of sketch in a guide for where you want to put them. So that's where they end up. Oops. I ended up on the wrong layer. Okay, so it's one of the keys. It's another important drawing. So ideally we might want something more like that. So that's the plan. It's on, like, usually on something less tiny in particular like this, I do draw out a plan of how to get from point A to point B sometimes. Especially if it's like something complicated. Oh, and why I can't select that foot is because I'm selecting it on the wrong frame. I'm like right in the middle of that tween. So I'm just gonna need to put this on twos. So if I say like the character's jumping or something, or they're doing like something a little more complicated, like they're stepping backwards or doing a turn or something, I might just draw what I plan to do on the layer, like on an empty layer above it, just so you can see if like it works before you put all the effort into it. And then you just have a plan you can follow. Okay, so the shoe's moving better and the timing works better. It's disconnecting from our ankle some, so I'm just gonna draw a couple new keyframes, which I'm not really drawing anything too big. I'm just gonna be adjusting her, like the angle of her shoes, and then I was just swiping this over here to set it to the latest keyframe, like the one at the very end. So I just do that one, and this one's not too bad. I think I can just tweak it there. Oh, it's this one here. So if you click and drag this, it will go to the last keyframe you drew. There you go. So the foot works so much better now. These two frames are different again. So just like last time, we're just going to select the most updated one I want to keep. And pull it back over there. Keep zooming up by accident. Sorry about that. Okay, select the head and put it to frame 1. And then click the head layer and synchronize the symbols. So we can also delete this, like that rough sketch. Now we're gonna fix her shadow since it's not moving up here. Let's move it over in the first keyframe. I just kind of animated it without noticing. It might have been better if I had, from the start, done it correctly. So create a classic motion tween. And then make a keyframe in the middle. I'm gonna close this. I'm just gonna make that smaller. I keep accidentally trying to use it instead of showing you how to do it without it. So that's the ease out, and this one's going to be an ease in. Keyframe the other two, delete the middle one, and then change the timing on this one. So there's no ease in the middle. And then select all this, remove your classic tween, and put it on 2s, which you can do manually by taking out every second one. So it should move with her now. Okay. And the other thing I would sometimes add, like if a character is just shifting in the background and they're not doing a whole lot, you can put a blink in there, which I haven't showed you how to build a blink yet. Maybe next time, because I'm running out of time. The other thing we can do is add a little bit of secondary. So there's a few options for the secondary. We can, just a second, we're probably animated on this timeline here. So another little cheat is to just make some blank keyframes on a new layer and put it where your animation starts and ends, or you can put it like where it starts, the high point, and where it ends, whatever you want to do. And then we're just going to paste that in here. We're going to go in again onto this layer and paste it in here. Just so I know where those like actions are happening, because nothing's going to happen before here because she's not moving yet. So her hair's not going to move if she's not moving. Another thing I do sometimes is I might grab a copy of this frame and make sure this is set to play once so it's in a correct spot. So we're going to grab a copy, and all I did was hit Control-C there. And we're going to go back out here and just paste it and guide it off because you don't want to see this later. Another way they do this also is you can edit in a new window, so you can have two windows open at once. So this window would be for me watching the playback of this animation for how she moves, and then in this window over here we're on the inside of that hair symbol, so we can go and be like, oh look, here's frame 13 is where this animation starts, and I already got a keyframe there. And then we go here and go, okay, she hits the highest point of her action about here at frame 17, and then you go back here and you go, okay, frame 17, let's put a couple keyframes in and edit this hair so it's being pushed up from her movement, and you can see it update here as you're doing it here. I'll do this real quick and then I'll show you the other way. some computers can't handle this too well. Or maybe it was like what version of Flash I used to be using. Because it used to make Flash crash all the time when I used to use this. It might just be that I have a newer computer now and it's fine, or maybe they updated what was going on. Okay, so here it goes up, and then she stops moving about frame 21. And then I'm just going to grab the original and adjust the original one. I'll start with that tiny piece at the bottom. Goes down. And then it will just settle. And she's pretty much done moving at this point, so it's kind of not a big deal. And create some classic tweens. And then go and see how it's moving. So her hair's going up as she moves up. It shouldn't really change direction until her movement changes, so that might be preemptively moving into the next one. Let's just move this back by a couple frames. It's a little bit of trial and error, so just like I think it will work if I go here, and let's change this other thing. So her hair should probably kind of be moving back and up a little bit like that until she gets close to the end, and then it will just kind of bounce down and settle, and that kind of looks okay, even if it may not be real world physics, but you know, it looks good enough. So then I'll just select all this, move that window out of the way, and put it on 2s, because if she's moving on 2s, so she's moving every second frame, you want her hair on the inside to match up on the same frame numbers. It doesn't matter if she, say she stops moving out here, that's fine. But you don't want her moving out here on frame, say if we put it off by 1 frame and then we sync the head. That's just my Cintiq pen, sorry about that. Synchronize symbols. Okay. Do you see that weird twitch as it plays back? It's because her hair's, everything's moving the same, but then on the odd number frames, every second frame. So all the body moves, and then her hair moves, and then all the body moves, and then her hair moves. You don't want that. That's why I was telling you to put everything on odd numbers, on the inside and the outside, just so everything matches up and you don't get that happening, that's called strobing, and it just doesn't look very good. So just make sure it matches up correctly. Okay, I'm done with that window and I'm going to close it. Now I'll show you how to do it without the window for anyone who's running a slower computer, or your computer just doesn't like Flash doing that. Okay, so you can see this is 2 symbols in to get in there. That's why I made a copy of the hair and dropped it on the same level as where this head is, but you still left this one in here. This copy, anything you do to the copy will affect the one that's still on the inside of her head, since they're linked together. And so quickly we're just go in and be like, okay, oops, sorry. So that's her head, but we're going to go into this one since it's a little more direct and be like, okay, we need a keyframe here. And then we're going to go into this one and be like, oh, the hair should be coming back. And make that adjustment here. Then I'm just going to drop another original copy of the first one, so it's just in a middle position. And at frame 25, just take a look at where frame 25 is. So that's where the hair is going to come down. Anything that looks a little bit weird, we'll just fix after. And then we throw in the same as the original one at the end. And then you can also give it a bit of timing too. And this goes for the other one. I can't remember if I did timing on the other one or not. So you can just select all of this. Go to classic ease, out, cubic. So we'll just soften it up a little bit. If it looks a little bit too harsh, you can also just play around with it and go to like quad. That's a little bit softer looking. And for some movements, if you have a very specific kind of movement, you might be able to use an ease in and out at the same time, but you don't want it to look too even either. So I think I'll just leave it like this. So that looks alright. You're having strobing right now because I haven't put this on 2s. Since it's on 1's on the inside and 2's on the outside, her hair is moving independently in every second frame. And we won't leave it like that. So just select all this, hit F6, remove your classic tweens, and then go and by hand, if you need to, just remove every second one. Or if you have some kind of panel like that. There you go, and our hair is moving right, so we can delete that extra layer. And the last thing I would do is put in a blink. And I haven't built blinks into her rig yet. But if you're wondering, what I do is we'd go into her eyes. And I left some space in here. And I'll just wrap in something real quick. I'm not going to clean it up right now, but I'll show you what it looks like. And then if you want to do it, you can put it in yours right away. And maybe I'll make a proper video covering blinks later. Okay, so it's just going to be a sketch layer for now. And I might not guide it off because I'm not going to clean them up for now. See about what size of brush I got. Gonna draw a circle in. So this is the first key and it's just gonna look like that. And then in the next, actually the easiest one is gonna be her eye will close. And there's a whole bunch of different approaches to this. I'm sure if anyone watches cartoons, you know that they can close like this, they can close like that. Lots of different options. For this one, I'm just gonna do kind of a default kind of shape. Or like a very common one I see. And then in between these two, you can either go with like favoring this position or favoring the open position. So you can kind of go like this, or you can go with a shape that's closer, maybe like this, before it closes. And then I'm just going to see what her skin color is and put my brush to paint behind. Select all, well, just select the area where this eye is and paint behind, and then paste that in. So it will look like it will close, and then that way you don't need to use a mask. Same with this one, just cover the whole area where the eye would have been. You can do this a lot tidier too by, like, I mean, you can select this for just that color and then smooth it out, or you can also just use this circle tool and turn off the line tool, and then you have a nice second. Let's put on a layer underneath. So like this, a little bit tidier. I was just kind of rushing. Same with this one over here, like, just paste that. Ooh, why did it do that? There we go. Paste it right there and delete the inside. And then it'll look the same at the last frame. Okay. Let's just rough in the last position here. And this one might be favoring the open position. Okay, so she has a blink now. I'm not gonna fiddle with it and make it the most beautiful blink ever right now. This one, oh, these are two different eyes. So we just need to go through it and make sure that the other eye matches in a second too. So I'd probably put the close position right at the middle of her movement. And you can use the frame picker and animate. Just select keyframes because you don't need it to load every single frame that's in there. We only need the keyframes. Okay. Let's do that. And then go here. Just select all the eyes you need. And I put them in order so we don't have to sort through which ones go where. And then for the pupil, might as well just adjust this right now. So you see this eye comes down some. Maybe you can either tween it or you can move it by hand. It honestly probably doesn't matter that much. I'm just gonna move it by hand. Like, it might matter more if you say you have a blink and the eye direction's changing and it's like a slow gradual movement or something. It might be handy to tween it then, but for this it doesn't really matter. It just needs to look like her eye, like her pupil's coming down as her eye closes, and then it comes back up again. Not quite like that though. I just selected the last keyframe, made a copy for the previous frame, and then we can just make a slight movement there. So it looks like it's moving with her eye. As it goes down. Like that. And the other eye is exactly the same thing. I'm just gonna bring that all over and match it up. Just using her other eye as a reference. Just making sure they're symmetrical. Or as symmetrical as I can get it without it being just silly. So they're matched up in the same position, so now I can delete that. And we might as well do the same with the other two. I mean, this is just because I didn't feel like winging it and redrawing it right now. You can redraw it from scratch if you want, and as long as it looks right, it's good enough. So I just flipped the ones I'm matching up horizontally, so it matches the current eye. And then I'm just clicking in between them to compare and be like, okay, is it, like, is the original one over this way further? Which it is. I'm going back and forth until it looks right. clear that one. Close enough. There we go. Now the side links. And let's just pop in those keyframes. Oh, right, and I just kind of forgot. I'll fix that. I just took out that big circle there. I still have to set up to paint behind. Thinking, like, I just didn't want to accidentally paint over anything important. And now I just need to make those people move to match the other one, and we're all done. They don't have to blink every time they make a weight shift or something. It just depends. Like, if you have a character just sitting there not doing anything and they're staring into space for a really long time, sometimes you can just throw a nice blink in as they move. But it's sometimes too, like, you don't want them blinking like they have something in their eye either. So it just depends on how often they're doing it in the scene. And maybe what the expression's supposed to be, like if they're supposed to be staring at something. And you can just see if oh, she's blinking really early right now. So let's just go in here and we're just put 2 keyframes in at the start of this. You can always take 2 out here to keep all that matched up. And then go back out to that outside of the head and sync it up again. I didn't mean to reverse the frames either. Okay. It's a little bit better. I think it looked fine. It probably would look okay if I cleaned up the eyes, but I gotta get going. I'm supposed to be somewhere else in an hour. Anyway, I hope you guys found that interesting and useful. I just figured that'd be a nice, easier introduction to animating poses too. And we can get into more complicated things later on in the future. I hopefully will put out another tutorial soon. I'm sorry it's not been super often lately. I've just been kind of crazy busy at work, so it's kind of impacting how much time I got for this. But I look forward to doing more in the future, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya.